we're going to do some cool coding stuff now. So we're going to open up PyCharm, but what we're going to do is we're going to call this data lake. Again, I started doing Python to get the data out, but it was just easier just to right click and say save as. What are we going to do? So we're going to say bronze environment, and then inside of our bronze environment, we're going to maybe get data, get to S3, large. It's not proper English, but it's okay. Data. Well, actually, why don't we just say S3 bronze? Because then we know what it is, right? Because we're not going to do anything here. We're just writing, and truthfully, we're not getting either. So we kind of are, but let's see. Write raw to S3 bronze. Okay, so that works. I don't like using 312. I like using 3.9 because if we decide to do a lambda, it's a little bit more friendlier. We just got to be careful with what, if we use any plugins or anything. So I like to keep this stupid simple and not use plugins. So let's just create our project. Now, one of my other videos, hopefully I deleted it. Hopefully I didn't spend time looking at it. I noticed I had an issue because I normally named this app. But in the other one, I did it main. And then when I try to run it, I couldn't find my mistake. But just to be consistent, we're going to do main. Now, I'm going to copy over my log file, but let's do some consistency here, right? So what we need to do is, to do bring in imports. And then we need to, this is just very high level, right? So to do bring in data from SV, or from API. This is fake data. We don't have an API. We may find one and fake it. And then we're going to push bulk data to S3. Okay. Now you might notice I am using a AI tool that kind of likes to help me. Codium, a buddy of mine, Justin, has got me turned on to it, and I'm kind of truly enjoying it. But we're going to do it our way. I'm going to take these out of to-dos because if I run Codium, it's going to want to do that for me. Okay. So how do we want to start this? Okay, so I'm back. I did a little cheating. I paused the video for a second. And what I did was I copied over my custom logging. So if you know me, I have this custom logging. You could retype it. It's really not rocket science, but it's kind of my version of log4net, log4j, but we always have to have logging, right? I also have this class that I wrote that's get settings. So we're going to have this settings file, and I'm not going to click on it because it will show my username and password for Aws, but we need to capture our Aws. And really, it's just a pound type situation. Let me close it so I don't actually open it. So what I'm doing is I'm reading the file. I'm going to pass it in, and then we're going to read each line. And if it starts with a pound, we're going to skip it because that's going to be our comments. And then we have one called Aws key and then Aws secret because you need that. And this kind of creates it like a getter and a setter because there's no getter and setters inside Python. So this kind of creates that for you. Apologize, I need to move my mic for a second. So the other thing we need to do is go over here to our main. What do we want to do here? So let's think about this. First thing we do is bring in our Boto. So let's do pip install Boto3. And I've done other videos with Boto3. I really like it. It's a really good way to do Aws. And there's other ways of doing it, right? So you can use the CLI. There's another one they have that you can use. But I like just writing the code with Boto3 because it's really cool. Okay, so the other thing we can do is we can kind of skeleton out the functions that we're going to need. Now, truthfully, I would probably put these in the class, but I'm not going to. So this one would be to create function. The little tooltip kind of helps sometimes, but it's kind of cumbersome because if I hit tab, it puts it out. And in Python, it's space specific, right? So you got to be careful with that if you use this. But one thing we want to do is be able to create a bucket. There we go. So that one kind of worked for me. And then I want to I guess this one's fine. See how that kind of worked? That's kind of cool. So now we could, I guess I could tab out how to do it without doing the bulk, and that's pretty straightforward. But I like the bulk load, so we're going to do that one too. And keep this simple. So I'll create function upload, bulk to S3. And then, of course, we have our main. Now, this is where I messed up last time. Make sure this is called main. I mean, you kind of don't have to, but this works for me. So we're going to do a diff main just to get us started. And I'm going to pass on that. Okay, just, oops, that's what I wanted. Okay, perfect. So there we go. So that kind of laid it out for us. And that's one of the reasons of using AI, the tooltip AI type situation. It really kind of works. The one thing that I want to do though here is make sure I put a pass or put a print, not a passy. Maybe it was listening to me, who knows? But we're going to say print done, just so we do this. Now I'm going to run this as a command line tool. So we need to bring in things to help us with a command line. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of my pass, and we need a try, and we need an exception. I'm okay with the pass for there. But what I do need is the exception. I'm not going to do the exception like that. Well, actually, that was what I wanted. Let's see. So let's see if I can get that to pop back up. I'll take that, and I'll take that. Cool. Now we need to bring in our custom logging. So let's just go ahead and import that in. Where are we at? We're good. And we're also going to need to import our Boto too. So import Boto. Now there is oh, we are going to need that too. So I'm okay with that. Wow, that's kind of cool. I don't need all that, but I do need that import that one. Okay, because that's going to be our settings. Now let's go down here and look. So what this is doing is if we have an error, it's going to catch it and it's going to write it out to our log file. So inside of here, what we can do first is do our custom logging. That's pretty cool. It's already there. I guess I can tell I've done this quite a few times, and that's kind of how this works, right? So what this is saying is we're going to get the settings. We need to pass in the settings. All right, so give us a, let's see, how do we want to do this? I want to make this a command line, which means we pass in arguments. And you might have seen me do this in a lot of other videos. So I'm just going to take this out for now because I need this to say settings data equals none. Oh, none of that was correct. We're just going to make this a null value here, and that's supposed to be an S, not a D. Settings data equals none, and that does not do that. So I guess, yeah, that's fine. Now here we're going to say args equals sys.argsv. Okay, that's cool. And we're just going to break this out here. Okay, cool. And then what I need to do is, I don't know if that's what I want. Actually, it's not. So let's stop getting help until we think about it. So what I'm going to say, if not args, because if you don't pass it in, maybe that's what I want. Let's see. I said I was going to stop doing that, and I lied. First thing I need to do is probably get the settings file equals, and we're going to have to write this, right? No, I guess we could do that. That's plain. Okay. So what I would normally do in this situation is write another helper class over here and have that helper class be a file helper, but we're not going to do that for now. That was smart enough to say, hey, you need this. So what we're going to do is just dump this into here. And then we can print this out to see if we are correct. And you're probably going to see my password, but at this point, I don't really care because it expires anyway. Let's see what we've got. Args, and then jump, and console. No such directory. Okay, so that didn't work. So yeah, we're probably gonna have to, I was hoping that would kind of back me up to here, settings, and into there. Oh, because it's not that, duh. Okay, it's actually properties. Whoops. I was trying to look at the tooltip. There we go. Let's try that again. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I lied. We're just gonna create a new, and we're going to do it properly. So we're going to call this folder helpers. Now in my applications that are larger, I usually have the helper files and I usually have them in a folder, but we're just going to call it out this way. let's see. So we need to import OS, and we're gonna make this a class. Now classes, oh, that's kind of cool. Well, I'll debug this in a second, but classes are capital. That's fine. It's passing in self. I don't want to create a folder, so we're going to rename this. So none of this is right. Okay, cool. So don't see what I mean? If I hit tab, it kind of puts it back in place. So don't do that. So say def. We're not going to create, we're going to get settings file. And self is fine. Let's see if that's close enough. Well, let's get the path. Now, it is properly to do it all on the same line, but it's easier to debug if you don't. So os path dot absolute path, and we're going to say os path dot join, and we're going to join our os path dot directory name file settings. The only thing is, let's see, file. We want a space there. It might need to be dot dot and then this. Let's not do that. Let's do it this way. Okay, so this is going to give us the directory of the path of where this file's ran. And then, what do we have an error here? Let's look for a second. So path, and in fact we got a space. That was it. Okay. So again, I hate that I can't tab over because you always do that, but return path is not that. It is return path. And we may clean it up and put all this on one line later. That's not right, but let's see what it gives us. So yeah, this should be settings for the folder, not the... Okay, so what are we looking at? And this should be path, not this. Path. Okay, so this is a file, a folder, a link to the folder. So we're saying, give me the directory name where those files ran. And again, I may have to dot dot to get us up one, and then the settings folder. And then here, I'm saying, again, give me the absolute path up to this file. Let's see what that gives us. And I just want to return that, okay? Now what I'm going to do is put a breakpoint right here, and we're going to call this over here. And let's see, so let's go back to our, what do we have an error? We have an error somewhere. Oh, because we have a pass here. Well, no, that's fine. We should have a pass there. Oh, our spacing's off. Okay, I see it. So let's go back to here. There we go. That fixed it. Now, you could highlight everything and do code, and it will fix all that for you. Is that an error? No, it's a debug. Okay, that's fine. Let's close that. Let's close that. Let's go back to here. And now here, what we want to do is we want to pull that in. So let's get rid of this. I could shift in and delete, but that's just as fine. Folder helpers dot. Okay. And I think that's it. There's nothing. We'll pass in a blank because it's going to want something because of the self. And let's see what that gives us. So let's put a breakpoint there. Let's debug. Let's go to console. Stuff in. Step over. So volumes, source, data lake video, which is where I'm at. So right to bronze, settings. Okay, so that's correct. So let's see if this is correct. We just need to get to the end. Settings. Yeah. Okay, cool. So now we step in, and that's correct. So that's going to get us our data. And that's why we called it out above it. So this is a check, right? So if you're doing arguments, if you're not doing arguments, it's going to pick up the default. If you pass in arguments, then it's going to pick up that file, okay? So let's fix that part real quick. That doesn't take long. I don't want that, though. I don't want that. Okay. So else, let's create a parser equals args parser. Here we go. Dot arguments parser. That works. Let's give it a description. I get that it was putting some stuff out there, but that's okay. No, I don't want it describe. I want descript. Make sure I spell this right. Description. Oops. What is all this? It's pretty close, but I don't trust it. So we're just going to do our on. Select settings file. Okay, I'm okay with that. We need to bring this in. That's why that's red. So import that in. And now the next line, we're going to say parser dot add argument. And this is close, but I don't want it S. I want it F. Okay, because we're passing in a file. That's kind of the way it's always been. And this is going to be file. And our helper is choose your settings file. Okay, that's fine for now. Okay, so next we need to say, we actually need to add more here. So I need to tell it a type. So type equals file. Actually, it's not a file. I'm sorry. It's args parser dot file type equals read, because we're only reading this file, comma, and then we're going to say in args. So we'll accept any here. And we can even put it in a default to be our settings file, but I don't want to do that, right? Okay, so that kind of worries me. What's going on here? Oh, capital. I'm sorry. Dot file type. There we go. Okay, so that should work. All right, now for the next part. Yeah, that looks right. Okay, and for the next part, still not right. So what I want to do here, though, let's just create a log real quick. Custom logging. Yeah, that's good, because we're going to write out the arguments so we can see what they are. And then what we want to say is if args.file, because we're going to check see if it's a file. Ugh, what is all this? Let's just accept that, and then we'll, oops, let's just accept that. So that's going to get our file. I think it's a little too overkill. Let's just do it this way. File name equals, and we can do, oh, actually, no, we have to filter this, right? So for, there we go. Now, that's close. Actually, yeah, that's fine. Okay, cool. Oops, let's go back here. But I don't need to print that out. So we're looping through our, let's talk about what we did, because we did a lot here. So we're checking the args. We're setting this public. Now, you can make it truly public, but it's just public for this main. Because I'm going to set it here. If the arguments are not passed in, I'm going to get the root, and I'm going to pass that here. Now, it's saying that else, we're going to create a parser where you're going to pass in a -f or -- file, and I'm going to check to see if it's a file that you're pointing to, and we're going to bring back the settings data. So I think that's fine. So that should be good for a command line. Now we need to say, give me Aws key. Okay, and give me Aws token, not key, but what's the difference? Oh, okay, so that's fine. So we'll call it Aws key and then Aws secret, not key. And again, the way this is built, and if you have any questions, just reach out to me. But the way this is built, now these are kind of like getters and setters, but the truth is I'm loading these values as a dictionary, and I'm basically getting that dictionary out, okay? So if I go look here, I can show you this. I'm trying to avoid showing you my password. But I mean, the truth is it's a long password. So if you want it that bad, there's other ways of getting to it. But if I go look into this, I'm basically doing a get on a dictionary and getting that value back. So it's kind of like a getter and a setter, which doesn't exist, but really you're doing a getter on the dictionary itself. So I hope that makes sense. So now, believe it or not, the hardest part is done as far as just making a simple application. So what we could do in the future is probably save this as a template and just use it as a shell, but we're not going to do that. what I'm going to do though is give it some real estate. I didn't realize I was programming so small. So let's open this up and give us some real estate here. Now, what we want to do now is come down here to, let's make our Boto work for us, right? And I did this in other videos. But what we want is an S3 equals Boto client. Perfect. I was kind of looking at that. Yeah, that should work. So that should give us a reference for our Boto. Now here, if you're going to pass in data, I'm just going to pretend like I am. So headers equals authorization. Let's see, authorization. If I can spell this right. There we go. And instead of that, it's going to be colon authorization, colon F, and bearer token. And it's truly not a bearer token. You could put content type equals JSON, but we're not going to do that. This is kind of faking, right? Oops, Control Z. We'll just comment that out. If I can comment that out, there we go. And then the next step, what I would do is create my body, right? So data equals get all metrics, and then pass in the header here. But we're not doing that. What we are going to do though is mock out this. So get all metrics. Now I would truly make this, because we've got to bring back the data, right? So create function to, we skipped that part. Okay, so diff, there we go. And we'll just put a pass for now. And what this is going to do is get mock data. This is going to pull in our JSON files, right? So let me think about how we want to do this. Well, I guess we could do this. Let's create a folder here. And we're going to call it data. Okay. And in our data folder, we're going to copy over these two files. Probably easier if I just say open in Finder. There we go. And we go to data. That way I know I'll get it in the right place. And over here, we set this. Okay. All right, there we go. Bam. So when you get both of these, and we need to dump both of those into the S3 bucket. All right. So before we do that, let's go ahead and mock up. Let's see. Let's get rid of these. Because what we need now is diff. We're going to say create bucket. Okay. We'll do a pass on that. And then we're going to do diff. Send large data to S3, and we'll do a pass on that. Okay, so these are the mockups we need to do. All right, so here what we're going to do is get this, and that's fine. And then from there, we need to validate that the data is good. So we'll say if data, okay, that's just going to validate if it's, so we can send it, but not yet. Let's do some cleanup. We'll probably bring in time, right? So we'll do that in a few seconds. Let's create a timestamp equals date time. It's going to ask us to bring that in. That's fine. I want now. Okay, and with that, to string format, I saw it pop up. There we go. That's not what I want though. That's pretty nasty. So let's clean up our, let's do hour. And then minute, and then second. Okay, so that's fine. So that will give us a date time, but it also formats our time for hour, minutes, and seconds. Okay, so for kicks and giggles, we can print that out if we want to, just to validate it. And then from here, like I don't even know what this down here did. Okay, so let's take that out. Now from there, we need to, what do we need to do? We need to get our, we need to create an S3 key. Okay, that's pretty much going to be the name of it. That is not even close to what I want. So we're going to say S3 key, format. We're going to put it in a folder called data. Maybe. Let's do a single. Tim. Bronze. I always put my name, so that way people know who did this. And then, actually, why don't we call it Tim Data Lake Bronze? It really wants to put that current time in there, doesn't it? Bronze. We're going to have to do the file name because we have two different ones, right? So we have metrics and we have, so let's do up here, we're going to have to control that when it reads it. So file name equals blank for now. But bronze, remember this is kind of partitioning too, so we got to be careful. Bronze and then dash file name plus current time. Okay, so that kind of works. And we'll just leave it at that for now. And now we create our bucket. And we need to pass in that. Is that what we put up here? No, we need to create that, don't we? But I was smart enough to know that I did that before. So we'll do that in a minute. So let's say bucket name. Bucket name. And then S3 because we already have an S3. Okay, so that works. We have a reference to our S3 right here. Okay, but we need to create our bucket name, which we don't have. So yeah, bucket name, copy. This should be the bucket name, not that. So let's, actually, we could just say bucket name equals Tim Data Lake, right? Yeah, like that. Okay, cool. So that should be fine for now. Okay. I'm debating, I don't think I need to put it here, but that's something we'll have to look at. Yeah, we don't need a forward slash. So bronze, B-R-O-N-Z-E. I'm looking at our notes, which is probably deleted. Oh no, here it is, okay. So, it's our bronze, and then file name, current time, create bucket, S3 name's here. Our S3 is here. It's only crying because we're not in this section right here, but that's fine. And then our next step is to, oh no, it's probably crying because those don't exist in that method. The next one is send large data. Let's look, see what that is. So in our data, we've got data, and then S3, then the bucket name, and then the key. Now I wonder if this is smart enough to create that for me. Or do I need to go create that? Nope. Okay, so let's go create that real quick. Up here, right here. So we've got a name, our S3. And we could actually, let me think about this. We could try this concept of saying if it's secured, but we'll worry about that later. Let's go ahead and create this real quick because that will help us out. First thing we need our try. Let's just see what this gives us. None of this is probably correct, but at least it gives us our logging and our error message. And I don't need a response. So what I do need though is S3 dot create, because we're passing that in as an object. Oops, I saw it pop up. Why isn't it picking that up? S3. Oh, there it is. Okay, so S3 create bucket and bucket name. And the truth is, I think it's all we need. And then what we can say is one more custom logging method create bucket created. Oh, cool. Okay, so that's great. Now I think that's all we need there. So we passed in the name S3, so we can actually test this. Okay, so let's go down here and test this. Let's go down to here, put put a breakpoint here, and we're going to comment this one out because it'll cause an error for now. And let's just see what we have, because I think we got a mess. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm catching a code type situation here. So let's go down to here. Oh, you know what? We don't have data, do we? What is our data? Get all metrics. Okay, so that's blank. So, all right. I'm going to break for now. We'll come back.